I think one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is a lot of people don't understand how a director penalty notice makes them personally liable for their company's debt. I still think there's a lot of feeling in the community that if a company has a tax debt, that personally they're okay.
Yeah, look, you're 100% right. In fact, I had a meeting just before this with a business advisor who's been doing it for a long time, and they were quite shocked to know that, people set up a company in order to protect themselves personally and be able to say, well, look, that works in many, many cases, but certainly doesn't work with the ATO. And I guess for those that are sort of watching this that maybe don't know what a director penalty notice is, or maybe have heard about them but don't really know the ins and outs, just sort of quickly we might run through that. And broadly, a director penalty notice is part of a thing called the director penalty scheme, which allows the ATO to make directors personally liable for broadly three. There's a few of them, but the main three are unpaid superannuation, unpaid pay-as-you-go withholding, and unpaid GST. And the way they work is that if a director fails to have the company pay those things, then they actually become personally liable. And if the ATO want to then enforce against them, they have to issue this thing called a director penalty notice, which is a precondition to enforcement. But the directors already become personally liable for these debts, and if the company doesn't pay them, then the ATO can and will pursue them directly for those debts.
Absolutely. So they're very serious. However, I also like to see the upside of things, and that there is ways to prevent further action from happening. And there is ways, even if you get a director penalty notice, obviously, ideally it is to prevent ever getting one. But if you do get one, there's still things that can happen. I had a client who was a tyre seller, a retail tyre seller, and they'd been massively affected by the lockdowns, by the supply, and had a hangover debt still from COVID, as so many businesses and people do. And they had received a DPN, but only spoke to their accountant 3 days before it was about to expire. So the accountant was extremely concerned, and they had an outstanding lodgement. So they'd called the ATO themselves. However, they were unable to get into a payment plan because they had that outstanding lodgement. So the accountant advised them to call us. They engaged us, and we acted very quickly. They had approximately $400,000 in debt, and about $70,000 of that was interest and penalties. So what we were able to do is within a week and a half, we got them into a payment arrangement, even though they had that outstanding lodgement, and the arrangement allowed for them to lodge that. And we also got $70,000 knocked off that total amount of the debt up front. And once they were in a compliant position, in practice, the ATO won't take any further action against the directors personally. So all of their assets, including their house, are safe. I think that's actually an important thing too. People say, well, can the ATO take my house? If they issue a director penalty notice, and if the process is followed down the whole line, arguably the ATO could, at the end of a recovery action, the house could be at risk, even if it's a company debt.
Yeah, Olga, that's and it is as serious as that. And you're right, we often have that. The ultimate thing is if the ATO chase a director down for a director penalty notice is bankruptcy and they lose their house. But look, awesome outcome that you got for that client, and they must have been very relieved. If you get in early enough and actually get on the front foot with the ATO, you can actually stop the issue of the director penalty notice altogether. Because people often say to me, well, how do we avoid getting one of these? Well, the way you avoid getting one of these is actually get in contact with the ATO and get into an arrangement, show that you're engaging, and then the ATO, there's no need for them to issue the director penalty notice.